Yes, Ryan Kim, Senior Product Manager at Spotify. We're going to talk about how you optimize creatives, but we're also going to talk about some cool stuff that you have been doing and building. And he is the man to tell us, because you've done this not only at Spotify, you've done it at Lyft, and you've done it throughout your career. So many reasons to chat with him during the break, because you've also advised Southeast Asian startups, live streaming as well. So we've got sort of like a fast-moving, fast-paced sort of speed dating sort of thing going on. Yeah. Sparks are going to fly, because I talked with him in prep. Really impressed. You are a doer, you're a maker, and you're building something cool at Spotify. But before we get to the what, let's talk about that why. Let's look back and say to ourselves, okay, so you lost, like every advertiser, access to third-party user data. You have to find a workaround. You didn't just work around it, you built it. What is about this laser focus on ad creatives? What is it about that moves you, the value of the creatives in the first place?
Yeah. So when it comes to like paid acquisition, I think the biggest power we had was the data. So using the data, we could optimize the ads and then build on top of that. But as the data, user level data is going to be gone, and it's gone right now, it's been really hard to optimize our ads further. And back in the days, like the idea we had was like, we're not leveraging the artist content we own at Spotify enough. So that's originally how we sparked the idea of the content ads. So in the past, we only had ads using like illustrations or like photos of like some random people. It wasn't really showcasing the artists that we worked with. So that's when we decided to like, hey, like let's use artist content in our ads and then make it more resonating with the users. And that's how like everything started at Spotify back in the days.
A little bit ahead of your time, because we've heard it today throughout the sessions, right? That it's so important to use in-app content. The content is exciting, and that happens. So what has been the path to perfecting your own proprietary machine learning sort of marketing campaign tool? You did it in-house, for one thing, so kudos to you. Tell me about it. What is it? What does it do? How's it function?
Yeah. So the product we built is called like ACM, acronym for Automated Content Marketing. So essentially what it does is that it generates like tens of thousands of content ads globally and then run it automatically. So the way it works is that we use our first-party data to figure out what are the popular artists in certain regions. And based on that, we create like ads utilizing the templates that are already developed by the product designers at Spotify. And once the ads are fully developed, we ship to ad platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all automated, and start running the ads. And that's not the end of it. So we use machine learning to observe like how ads are performing on a daily basis. And then if we need to like swap out underperforming ones, then we do that. So we take out the underperforming ones and then reintroduce with the new ones, and then everything's all automated. So there's really no human intervention like in the middle of the process. And that's the product that we built in-house at Spotify.
Give me an idea of the scope and scale here. You say it's automating. It's just, it's basically AI is in charge, but there's probably some sort of team effort to keep it going. It's got to be co-creation with AI, right?
Yeah. I don't believe that everything will be like fully automated by AI like eternally. There's always going to be the human component within the process. So for example, what we did was that when we are working on new template designs with the designers, then we come up with a lot of different hypotheses and say like, hey, these are the points that people are resonating with. So let's focus on that and then build ads on top of that. So you can see that there's a human component within the process. And once that design is built, then we automate the whole process. But in terms of like coming up with the hypothesis and everything, like that was done by human.
What about, music is the soundtrack of our lives. And I'm a diehard Spotify fan, probably from the very start. And I love the way that you've been able to bring in context. Spotify was the first to say, well, the weather is this, you need to have this music. Now you're talking about AI and personalization, but also localization. Give me an idea of how you're doing that, because it's a global company. There are different tastes, there are different artists that are popular in each region. Probably some trial and error, but maybe AI is helping you avoid some of that.
Yeah. So two data points that we look at is the first thing is the first party data. So internally, we have a lot of like data about the artist, like how many streams does this artist get on a monthly basis, which song is popular, like why is this artist popular in certain region, and plus we also get to see the performance of the ads. So combining those two data sets, we can tell like, oh, this artist is really popular in certain region, and we should be using more of this artist. So yeah, that's the avenue that we took.
Now, full disclosure, we talked before because I'm really excited about what you're doing. And there's a part of me that says, got to be an article in Forbes. So you told me, and I'll quote it, that the main focus of ACM when you started out was to diversify acquisition strategies so that our growth run rate isn't impacted even if some of the channels slow down. Now, that was the vision when you started this. How is ACM stacking up?
Yeah. So I think the landscape of the paid acquisition is changing really fast right now. The reason being like the ad pricing is skyrocketing, and then not many companies can really afford like ads that they're running right now. So sometimes like you need to dial down like paid acquisition and dial up like organic growth or focus on referral. There's so many channels that you could be working on. So ACM becomes really handy when you're like turning off or turning on the paid acquisition. So with one button, you can turn on tens of thousands of ads like globally, and with one button, you can turn it off everything. So you can easily manipulate the paid acquisition channel within the Spotify, and then use it for however you want to, essentially.
It's really cool with one button because that's what we're supposed to do when we measure incrementality.
Yeah, exactly.
Just turn it off or turn it on. How are you able to do that? I mean, I remember one great interview I did. Incrementality is like heaven. Everybody wants to go there, but no one can reach it. Something like that.
Yeah. So,
but you can turn it off and on with one button. That makes it really important to boost incremental signups, to look at those campaigns. What's working to get people from free to fee, to get them to subscribe?
Yeah. So with ACM, before we launched it, we've been doing a lot of different experiments. And one thing we found out is that like creative really matters a lot. Especially, I'm not talking about the template designs, but more so on the artist content. So people tend to more resonate with the artists that they recognize in the certain markets or something like that. So for example, Justin Bieber is really popular in the US. So if you're running like ads with Justin Bieber, that will be more resonating with the users compared to like indie bands that people not know of, for example. So I think like selecting the right artist content for ACM was the really important thing.
You're able to do this with AI, and that's great, but there are like real human constraints. For example, you can't license and do everything with every artist. And it doesn't even matter how amazing they are or how much of a draw they would be for your audience. Tell me a little bit about how you're able to balance like the need for relevancy and the need for impact with just this mammoth task where you have to have human capabilities, human marketers, human, probably legal, to run it. What goes on there?
So when it comes to using like generative AI for creating ads and stuff like that, I think there are two things that we need to look into. So first thing is like, let's say we're creating a lot of images from Midjourney. Are they actually usable for commercial purposes? Can we use it? Like, do we actually capable of doing so? And then the second thing is more specific for Spotify's use cases, but when we're running ads with artist photos, we always need to get consent from the labels to do so. So I think like whenever people are trying to use generative AI for their ads and creating like text or like images, whatever you're using, you always need to make sure that the copyrights are not blocking you in any way and you're good to go. I think that's the biggest part for generative AI right now.
Let's stay on that because that is the hot topic. There's going to be more of it this afternoon as well. So AI, sum it up for me. You're a doer, you're a builder. Brian, what do you see or where do you see the biggest benefit for marketers? Is it in that just generating plenty of creatives or something other than that?
I think the good use case of generative AI is unlocking the human creativity. So oftentimes when we work with the design agencies or work with the marketers, we tend to have like fixed mindset sometimes. And we can't really get out from that kind of box because like we've been working on this idea for so many years and then we're so hooked onto this idea. And utilizing like tools like generative AI really like just breaks the boundary and then gives you so many random ideas. And then you start thinking like, oh, I've never really thought about that. Like I could definitely use it for our companies. I think generative AI comes really handy when it comes to like breaking the creativities and then like expanding your creativity to new horizons. And then mass scaling the ads that we are running on a global scale. Because ultimately, when you're working with design agencies, maybe you can come up with like 10 different types of ads like per quarter-ish. But when you're using generative AI, you can come up with like hundreds or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands types of design, and you can use it however you want.
So I like the automation, and the scale, but it's also that inspiration. You said it yourself. It might sort of tap you on the shoulder and say, have you thought of this? Or have you thought of that combination? Licensing aside, but maybe give an example of something that you found really surprising, even in your campaigns, where it's like, I didn't know that was going to be a hit, or I didn't know that was going to have that kind of uplift.
Yeah. So originally, when we came up with the idea of content ads, we only featured like one popular artist from a certain region. And then one test we ran was like, what if we showcase like 5 or 6 different artists instead of just one? And we thought that that could be way more effective because showing 6 popular artists versus one
better.
Exactly, yeah. And then the results was not like that at all. Apparently, people liked like seeing one artist, and then we thought a lot. And this is just our hypothesis right now, which is that the mobile phone real estate is like really small. So when you're seeing ads on your phone, it's really small. And then if you're showing 6 different images in one small teeny bitty screen, then you won't be able to recognize like who is this artist, and it's really hard to tell from the get-go. So I think like that's the reason why it didn't perform well, but it was a very surprising result for us when we saw that.
What about localization? I'm looking a lot into cultural sensitivity research. That there are just certain artists or there's certain contexts that are working better than others. Is something you can share there about all the testing you've done, some of the ideas around what has really optimized or what has really boosted your creative strategies? Something you've learned that you didn't know before.
So generally, we try to partner up with the local marketing team a lot because they're the ones like who know the best about the market. So generally, at the beginning, we have one generalized text that's been translated to like many different languages across the world. But before we start launching it, we always like review with the local marketing team and ask them like, hey, does this make sense from your cultural perspective? If not, how should we fix that? And then another thing for us was that sometimes there's a sensitivity about certain artists in certain regions, and we need to be really careful about it. And since we don't know the nuance of the differences, we always go after the marketing team, and then they will let us know like this is what you should be doing. So I think like having a really great partnership with the local team really boosted our capacity around the cultural differences.
So I won't ask you for numbers, Ryan. I promised I wouldn't, but I will ask you for a range. I will ask you for a range or a multiple. What is the impact you've seen by doing this, by having this approach, first of all, in-house, but also being very focused on, the local opportunities for your artists?
Yeah. So ultimately, like each team focuses on like one primary metric, and then my team focuses on MAU, so monthly active user. So with ACM, we've been generating like millions of incremental MAUs at Spotify. So it has been generating like a really big impact internally.
Let's just end on something about AI that probably our audience doesn't think about, or it's just coming up. We're talking so much about generative AI. There are opportunities, there are pitfalls. Maybe you can go over one that you think is a hot topic that we will be talking about soon that they need to be thinking about now.
Yeah. So when it comes to the usage of generative AI, I think the biggest thing we should be thinking about is the hallucination detection. So oftentimes, you probably already use ChatGPT, but sometimes it spits out wrong information, which doesn't exist at all. It just makes up something based on the information that they ingest. So you need to be really careful about like, is this text actually correct? Or let's say you're trying to generate some images utilizing the artist's images. Is this actually representing this artist's brand and the feeling in the correct manner? So the more we start using generative AI, it's going to be more important to be certain about the facts about the images or videos or text that we output. and then using it in a commercial purposes. So hallucination detection will be the hot topic and is the hot topic right now. And then internally, we are also looking into many different avenues to tackle the problem at Spotify.
Okay. Quick one, just very quick. Next step for you. You're rolling out the content ads globally. You're behind this effort. This is in-house. This is a powerhouse. What's next?
So I think like all the companies are going through like interesting phase right now, which is that, it's not just about growth anymore. We need to be caring about the net profit and then making more revenue for the company. And that means that we need to be more strategic about the paid acquisition. So we need to be more thoughtful about measuring the performance of the ads and then not overspending than what we could do. And be more thoughtful about LTV and stuff like that. I think like that will be the key for the next few years from my view.
All right. Well, we did it, Ryan. We did it in top speed. There are no questions, but you're here during the break. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.